Good evening and welcome to the special Independence Day show of On Point. Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivered his 12th consecutive Independence Day address from ramparts of the Red Fort, marking the nation's 79th Independence Day with the longest speech ever on the occasion. In his 103-minute speech, Prime Minister Modi touched upon a diversity of topics, from Operation Sindoor to Atmanirbharta, GST reforms to how governance has changed in the last decade. But I have picked 5 themes which I thought were different. I have divided our special show today in 5 broad themes that PM touched upon. So the 5 takeaways which I think are very, very different is: first, the Prime Minister praised RSS from the ramparts of the Red Fort. Second was his reference to the word Ghuspatia, demography, change in border areas. Third, Prime Minister spoke about India's Iron Dome system, which is very important in wake of what happened in Operation Sindoor, where drones were all over the civilian areas. Fourth, Achilles heel of India, Made in India jet engine. We have been trying our best from 80s, but we have not been successful. Fifth, something which makes Prime Minister Modi very unique: his health campaigns, reduce cooking oil consumption. And he has been talking about Fit India, Khelo India and health issues. So let me start with the first topic. We will discuss this topic together with the second topic, which is Ghuspatia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised RSS from the ramparts of the Red Fort. It is important to note that the RSS in Congress evolved in different directions post-independence. Former was banned thrice by sitting Congress governments, and the relationship between Congress leadership and RSS remains bitter. It is in this context the mention is very important.
आज से 100 साल पहले एक संगठन का जन्म हुआ, राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ। 100 साल की राष्ट्र की सेवा एक बहुत ही गौरवपूर्ण स्वर्णिम पृष्ठ है। व्यक्ति निर्माण से राष्ट्र निर्माण के संकल्प को लेकर के 100 साल तक मां भारती का कल्याण का लक्ष्य लेकर के लक्षावधि स्वयंसेवकों ने मातृभूमि के कल्याण के लिए अपना जीवन समर्पित किया है। सेवा, समर्पण, संगठन और अप्रतिम अनुशासन, ये जिसकी पहचान रही है, ऐसा राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ दुनिया का ये सबसे बड़ा एनजीओ है। एक प्रकार से 100 साल की इस राष्ट्र सेवा की यात्रा में योगदान करने वाले सभी स्वयंसेवकों को आदरपूर्वक स्मरण करता हूं।
So for the first time, Prime Minister from BJP has praised RSS from the Red Fort and in detail. The timing is also important as Bihar elections and RSS media conference are around the corner. And PM reinforces the point that the BJP and RSS on the same page. On this issue, I am joined by Hitesh Shankar, editor Panjanya, Smita Mishra, senior journalist, and Ajay Jha, psephologist and senior journalist. Let me put this in perspective for our viewers. I'll start with Hitesh. So put this in perspective for our viewers.
मुझे लगता है कार्तिकेय जी, ये जो लाल किले से संघ का उल्लेख है, ये बहुत आवश्यक भी था और एक धारणा को भी तोड़ता है कि संघ को जब देखा जाए राजनीतिक दलों द्वारा तो केवल राजनीति के चश्मे से ही देखा जाए। किसी भी सामाजिक संगठन की, सांस्कृतिक अभियान की जो जड़ें होती हैं वो राजनीति में नहीं होती, वो समाज में होती हैं। और आज उसके अलग अलग जो डायमेंशंस हैं उनकी बात प्रधानमंत्री ने की है। और इसके साथ ही ये भी समझ में आता है कि इस देश की सांस्कृतिक एकता, आज जैसे भाषाई एकता का प्रश्न प्रधानमंत्री ने लिया, और उसके साथ आंतरिक सुरक्षा और बाह्य सुरक्षा, ये ऐसे मुद्दे हैं जो राजनीति से बाहर के मुद्दे हैं। संघ भी उठाता रहा, राजनीति को समय समय पर याद आते हैं, मगर आज संघ को समग्रता में याद करना मुझे लगता है बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात है शताब्दी वर्ष।
Smita?
Yes, actually, you see, I see it in a sort of a sequence. Okay, there was a time when people who subscribed to the Sangh's ideology, they would admit it so much in public, particularly if they're associated with the government, state, or center in any way. Now you know that rule that had been put into effect many decades back was lifted by the Narendra Modi government proudly, that there is no bar on government functionaries to be associated with the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. There is no rule that stops subscribing to the RSS ideology if you are the government of the day, because both of them actually are working towards the same goal. Now, this remark that has come today from Red Fort, I see it as, there is context to it. It is just not just randomly that the Prime Minister picked it up. RSS in a matter of few months is going to complete its centenary, and it is only expected that Prime Minister Modi, who has been an RSS Swayamsevak for longest time in his own life, would like to acknowledge the service of the RSS in India, worldwide, at a time of its centenary juncture. What I find it a little jarring is the kind of sharp reactions that have come from some people about the Prime Minister mentioning the RSS in his speech. The RSS is a well-known organization looking for the social, cultural betterment, welfare and upliftment of the country, also of strengthening the cultural, the civilizational roots of the country. Why should anybody have a problem with mentioning the RSS from the Red Fort, which is the most important speech of the Prime Minister every year? Particularly people who created a Jhojala organization called the NAC, which went so far as to sit there and draft the legislations. Can you imagine a body outside of the government, extra constitutional bodies drafting the legislations, and Parliament is, and then the bills are brought in Parliament to be passed? They drafted the communal violence bill, which the government of the UPA tried 5 times to get it passed but could not get it done. It's such a problematic bill. Its basic premise, its basic idea was so dangerous. So just mentioning the RSS services, there was no controversy, there was no remark that anybody should have felt anything wrong about. As I said, I'm baffled by the reactions that have come. But then there is a section of the country, the moment you mention the RSS, they come out with all kinds of actions. So I say, see, the RSS does not need the Minister's acknowledgement from Red Fort to go on its work. The RSS has continued its work in the most challenging circumstances for decades, not for a small time. The biggest part of the RSS existence so far has been at a time when there were hostile governments in the center. So I think the RSS doesn't need this acknowledgement, but it is a message from the Prime Minister's side to the whole country, and also to some detractors abroad who, always try to attack the RSS if they want to criticize the government.
Okay, I don't say, I'm not surprised by the acknowledgement. My thinking was, Ajit, is this mentioned more about internal ecosystem because of the controversy which erupted during Lok Sabha election in context of JP Nadda's interview? Because I don't think RSS requires any acknowledgement from any individual. Its work is independent from BJP. So, in which perspective do you see the Prime Minister's, this portion of the speech?
Look, symbolically, the RSS completes 100 years, right?
True.
So I'm glad.
And there's a very important press conference which is going to take place. Last one took place in 2018, in which I was there. Mohan Bhagwat clarified certain issues regarding the second Sar Sangha Chalak, and he said what is relevant for today has been kept, what is not relevant is not there. If you recall, because that took place in Vigyan Bhavan and I was there. So I really don't know what's going to be on the agenda, but something substantive I think must be planned this time around too.
that's one angle. See, the other angle is, if you look at the overall speech, it's an extraordinary vision of economic transformation, manufacturing transformation, defense-based manufacturing transformation. So the focus of the speech is economic development. RSS part is mainly a political and cultural aspect of his 103 minutes lecture. So that is very important. Number three, you are absolutely right. At least in the media and outside, there was speculation that there is a rift between Prime Minister Modi and the rest of the RSS, or the government, PMO and RSS. This was going on especially during Lok Sabha elections. And you already mentioned Mr. Nadda's kind of point that the BJP doesn't need the RSS. So I am glad, in a way, Prime Minister has done two things. Right after 2024, he went to Nagpur and gave a speech there. And today, from the ramparts of the Red Fort, he made this point that the RSS has always been involved in nation building. It is dedicated to India's service. The fact that the RSS is the largest NGO in the world. And then he mentioned that I'm proud of the RSS history. So you are right. You see, let me make one small point. Before Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah came in 2014, the RSS was largely a cultural front. Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah kind of reorganized the RSS and made it what we journalists call a massive election machine. So the fact that the Bihar elections are coming, a spate of other elections are coming, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh. So you need the RSS at the ground level, at the booth level.
Okay.
In fact, the BJP by itself cannot do it. So I'm glad the Prime Minister cemented all those speculations about the rift between the two, the parent organization, if you want, and the BJP. So I think he did a good job, and that would stop some of that speculation.
I think,
that goes on.
If you ask me, I see it from a different perspective. The way BJP evolved under Vajpayee, the Gandhian socialism being part of the first manifesto, and the evolution which took place, I think with Prime Minister Modi in this tenure, there is one thing which is very clear: unapologetic Hindutva and unapologetic commitment to certain issues which people thought were unpalatable to them. But what has happened in 10 years is the center of politics has shifted, which people realized it after 2019. From a Nehruvian consensus, it shifted. This consensus has shifted and moved inside the RSS ecosystem. That is the larger change which has happened at a societal level. So that is why it's perfectly okay when he says it. Imagine if someone would have said it in an alliance sarkar 25 years ago, perhaps that would have been the only story running through the day. But it is not the story. There were multiple other stories which people are talking about. So that's number one. But the second thing he also mentioned is something which we have been debating for past 15 days. SIR thing and the entire Ghuspatia controversy. So Prime Minister Modi announced a high-powered mission to counter the conspiracy to alter India's demographic profile through illegal infiltration. He warned that illegal infiltration would not be tolerated under any circumstances, and accusing infiltrators of seizing tribal lands and depriving youth of opportunities.
मैं आज देश के सामने एक चिंता, एक चुनौती के संबंध में आगाह करना चाहता हूं। षड्यंत्र के तहत, सोची समझी साजिश के तहत देश की डेमोग्राफी को बदला जा रहा है। एक नए संकट के बीज बोए जा रहे हैं, और ये घुसपैठिए मेरे देश के नौजवानों की रोजी रोटी छीन रहे हैं। एक घुसपैठिए मेरे देश की बहन बेटियों को निशाना बना रहे हैं। ये बर्दाश्त नहीं होगा। ये घुसपैठिए भोले भाले आदिवासियों को भ्रमित करके उनकी जमीनों पर कब्जा कर रहे हैं। ये देश सहन नहीं करेगा।
So one, it is a reinforcement of the SIR exercise that says on illegal voters must be taken out. It reinforces that illegal voters should be out of the voting list. Prime Minister stressed on the word Ghuspaitiya. And third understanding is, which I believe, that BJP will not allow the opposition to walk free on the SIR issue. So Hitesh, my question to you is this the new socio-political frontier?
कार्तिकेय, ये कह सकते हैं, और बहुत सारे राजनीतिक दलों के लिए आज के बाद ये बड़ी दिक्कत होने वाली है, क्योंकि घुसपैठिया शब्द को जिस तरह से अंडरलाइन किया गया है, बहुत सारे दलों को ये बताना पड़ेगा कि उन्हें भारत से प्रेम है या घुसपैठियों से प्रेम है। उन्हें मतदाता सूची का मुद्दा जब लेकर आते हैं, उल्टा पलट कर उनकी तरफ आ रहा है। उनको स्वच्छ पारदर्शी व्यवस्था चाहिए, घुसपैठियों का वोट नहीं चाहिए, ये मुद्दा बनता हुआ दिख रहा है मुझे। और देश में भी जब नीचे तक ये बात जाएगी, आज जो पूरा एक कार्य व्यवस्था उसके लिए तैयार करने की बात की है, तो मुझे लगता है देश के संसाधनों पर पहला हक देश के नागरिकों का है। देश के रोजगार के लिए इन युवाओं के सही पारदर्शी तरीके से उनके लिए काम होना चाहिए, ये भी दिखाई देता है। और जो कोई पीडीए की बात करता है, कोई आदिवासी की बात कर रहा है, बात तो बहुत कर रहे हैं, मगर उनका हक कौन लोग खा रहे हैं, सीमा पार से किस तरीके से आ रहे हैं, और वो धीरे धीरे मतदाता सूचियों तक चढ़े जा रहे हैं। आज के इस अभिभाषण ने बता दिया है कि ये काम और बड़ा होने वाला है, और खाली बिहार इलेक्शन तक लिमिटेड नहीं रहने वाला है। ये पूरे देश के लिए एक, आप कहिए, संकल्प के तौर पर लिया गया है, कॉल फॉर एक्शन के तौर पर लिया गया है।
More comments? Your comments, Smita?
Yes,
yes.
I couldn't hear you very well.
No, I'm saying your comments on the Prime Minister stressing the fact that, illegals is an issue. I recall that the BJP made it an issue in the Jharkhand election. It didn't bear dividends, but I think now again for the Prime Minister to stress itself and SIR going to be a national exercise. So for this reason, I picked this up. That Prime Minister himself has spoken on this issue, which means that it's not one of the issues. When Prime Minister says something, it becomes the issue.
Yes, and you see, it is a fact that when the Prime Minister himself and the rest of the party raised the issue of infiltration, Ghuspaitiyas in Jharkhand, if you look at it purely from an electoral standpoint, it did not pay dividends. The BJP lost Jharkhand for various other reasons. Not because infiltration is not an issue, but BJP's defeat in Jharkhand does not prove that there was no infiltration. Infiltration by itself is an issue which is directly connected to our national security, our internal security. It is a drain on our resources, and it drives the actual people who deserve the resources of the country, the real citizens of the country. And a day will come when these Ghuspaitiyas will start deciding the electoral results, and in that way they will be, it is their views and their wishes that will reflect government policies when people whom they vote come into governments. I am very curious and also very interested in this, the powered mission against infiltration that has been announced today from the Red Fort. Because I know it for a fact, having lived in a long part of my life, I saw this right in front of eyes. The state was changed completely. Our neighborhood changed. The road from home to school changed. The road all villages around Guwahati changed. So I know it for a fact. Let me tell you, Kartikeya, why this mission is so essential. Because today, we have waited enough, almost 4 decades, for state governments to work at their own level to fight infiltration. Let me tell you, it is not happening. Had state governments understood their responsibilities in the past, we would not have reached where we are today. Whether you look at Tripura, West Bengal, Assam, then Jharkhand, the erstwhile divided Bihar, and now it is getting deeper. There was time when used to say that Semanchal in Bihar is 4 districts. Today, I can tell as an eyewitness, it is not limited to 4 districts. The demographic change of Semanchal is now spreading more in and becoming nearer to other parts of, spreading to parts of
Okay.
Bihar.
Okay.
Let's not wait for state governments. We need to have a national mission. Already ECI is working on it for an SIR, starting with Bihar and to other states. I am very happy that a mission nationwide has been announced, because this is something which concerns our security, our economy. We cannot leave it to state
Okay.
governments, because
Okay.
state governments decide with very narrow political
Okay.
standpoint, and they don't seem so real. I mean, really
Okay,
so
Ajit,
very
you know,
interested.
okay, Ajit, your
once
comments?
in a while they have a Himanta Vishwa Sharma, but most of the time they don't.
Okay, Ajit, your comments, you know.
Karthikeyan, all advanced countries in the world where capitalism is booming, they require to stop demographic changes, because what tends to happen when you are booming, who are people from around neighboring countries, they come, right? For example, in the US, how Mexican labor or Latin American labor, Chicanos, they filled up the US.
Absolutely.
So you see, when Trump has come, he's trying to get rid of illegal immigrants. It's a similar thing. India is booming compared to the rest of the neighborhood. So therefore, a high-powered committee for ensuring that there is no demographic sort of changes in a drastic manner is very, very important in terms of policy. And as a rhetoric, Prime Minister Modi mentioned that they take away jobs of our youth, they target our daughters and sisters, they target our tribal population, they take their land away. So rhetorically it's all right, but the important thing is this high-powered demographic mission, because after all, in some ways, it is the government's failure, central government's failure. If you have illegal immigration, it's their job to stop it. How do you stop it? It's not easy, that I realize, but the government must come up with a policy, and I'm glad for the first time,
Yeah,
at least from
absolutely.
the ramparts of.
Absolutely, you know, there are three things there. One is the change in demography. The second is if they alter the political equation, and the third part is if you take away the economic opportunity. And there are a number of models which work on porous borders. But I thank you all of you for joining me in this first part of the conversation. It's time for a short break. Don't go away, because in the second part is about India's Iron Dome system and jet engine. But after a short break.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर डायना प्रीमियम ब्यूटी सोप, पहली झलक करे खूबसूरत।
मारो गाँव कांठा पर जहाँ सुनहरी है दिन रातें, जहाँ खुशियाँ करती बातें, मारे गाँव छाई दूध से हरियाली, रे मारे गाँव छाई दूध से हरियाली। रे बायोगैस है कमाल, गोबर धन से खिले जहान, फैली घर घर में मुस्कान, पूरे हुए सभी अरमान। सुनो सुनो रे, आई आपकी बहार, खुले नए नए संसार, खून पे पैसों की बरसात, मारे घर झांझर लक्ष्मी के बाजे, रे मारे घर झांझर लक्ष्मी के बाजे।
Go condoms?
It's over there.
क्या ये डिफरेंट साइजेस में आता है?
Actually, sir, size matter नहीं करता.
तो फिर क्या मैटर करता है?
The hardness
Of the condom.
of what's inside.
For the first time ever, presenting Hard Rock Gel, the hardness gel for men.
अब फ्री हर स्कोर कॉन्डम्स के 10 पैक के साथ.
ड्रामा मतलब बेबो, स्वीटेस्ट मतलब लोलो, पार्टी मतलब जेलो और 10 मिनट्स मतलब बिग बास्केट।
येलो
10 minutes मतलब बिग बास्केट, 10 minutes मतलब बिग बास्केट।
Papa, let's go to Duda. Happy birthday, Duda. Duda, I love you. Go, Duda, go. I love my Duda. I love my Duda.
Skoda।
Prime Minister Modi announced the launch of the Mission Sudarshan Chakra, a state-of-the-art defence initiative aimed at bolstering India's security. The mission will create a shield to protect India's strategic, civilian and religious sites from potential enemy attack. The announcement came day after Pakistan Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir hinted at targeting Indian assets along the border, including Jamnagar refinery in Gujarat, in case of future confrontation. Prime Minister also spoke of the nuclear blackmail issue. Let me play out his bite.
आने वाले 10 साल 2035 तक मैं ये राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा कवच का विस्तार करना चाहता हूं, मजबूती देना चाहता हूं, आधुनिक बनाना चाहता हूं और इसलिए भगवान श्री कृष्ण से प्रेरणा पाकर के हमने श्री कृष्ण का जो सुदर्शन चक्र था उस सुदर्शन चक्र की राह को चुना है। श्री कृष्ण ने अपने सुदर्शन चक्र से सूर्य के प्रकाश को रोक दिया था। अर्जुन ने जो शपथ ली थी जयद्रथ का वध करने की, उस प्रतिज्ञा को अर्जुन पूर्ण कर पाए थे। वो सुदर्शन चक्र के पराक्रम और रणनीति का परिणाम था। अब देश सुदर्शन चक्र मिशन लॉन्च करेगा। पाकिस्तान की नींद अभी भी उड़ी हुई है। पाकिस्तान में हुई तबाही इतनी बड़ी है कि रोज नए नए खुलासे हो रहे हैं। अब भारत ने तय कर लिया है कि न्यूक्लियर की धमकियों को अब हम सहने वाले नहीं हैं।
On this issue, I am joined by Lieutenant General Arun Sahni, former General Officer Commanding in Chief Indian Army, and Air Commodore Dr. Ashminder Singh Bahal. Thank you both of you, gentlemen, for joining me. General Sahni, my question to you is, when we talk about Iron Dome system, easier said than done. It's expensive. Even Israelis ran short of them during the war with Hamas. And it's multi-layered. You have one Iron Dome, then you have David Sling, and then you have Arrow, which is ballistic missile, intermediate, and then Iron Dome basically takes care of the rockets and the smaller aerial targets. So, can you just decode it for our viewers when Prime Minister is talking about it? Do we expect deeper strikes in civilian areas?
So let me just put it. I think you correctly set the context right. I think Munir's statement of targeting the economic targets which are along the border, and we actually have large borders. I mean, it's 11,000 kilometers, about 3,500 with Pakistan, and then you look at the Chinese border, and now if you look at the Bangladesh border as well. So I think the capability that exists today, which we have seen with the Chinese equipment played by the Pakistanis, they could hit in as deep as about 120 to 150 kilometers. We have engaged at about 300 kilometers. Now, how do you tackle this security? You correctly said it's multi-layered and it has three functions. Basically, what you require is, firstly, you require surveillance systems. Today's technology, which has come in finally from the space, with the assets in the air, with the ADCNR kind of systems that you've got. As we said, we had the Hawkeye, which is there, the Netra, which came up of India. All these kind of systems in the air, along with ground surveillance systems which are deployed, you today have capability to carry out surveillance right across the front and in reasonable depth, which goes as far back as 300 to 500 kilometers. And if you can do that kind of surveillance, then you now have the capability to seamlessly pass it on to a command and control system, which will identify the right weapon platform to be utilized to fire. We have a combination of this. If I had to sort of decode it a bit further, today India has large borders and we have critical targets which are located at different places spatially. You may not be able to have an Iron Dome like what the Israelis have done against, say, Lebanon, Hezbollah, or they did try against, say, the Hamas, because their frontiers were limited. In our case, it will be in piecemeal, but our surveillance system would be integrated. And when you're talking about surveillance system, this integration would take place. And if I have to call it anything, I would say it's an active defense system. I pick up When his aircrafts take off from a particular airfield, I see the direction which they are moving in. It gives me a footprint of where they are going. I activate all my layered air defense assets, oblique my surveillance assets, and that data, when it comes in, with the help of AI machine learning, I ensure that categorically it is done in such a seamless manner in milliseconds, and the designated weapon system has been warned. So the shooter has been warned. So what is going to happen primarily is, as I said, we were looking at it for the capital city initially. We have radars which are there, which will give you early warning of anything coming towards Delhi. You have missile systems other than what you saw in the tactical and operational plane during the Sindoor that played out. We also have things which we are looking at as exothermic and endothermic. What is exo and endothermic? Those missiles which have a hyperbolic path which come in, and which is there in the arsenal of the Pakistanis and in the Chinese, would come in into the through the atmosphere, or go outside the atmosphere and then enter the atmosphere. So you have missile systems which will be able to be launched to be able to capture this. Now these will require to be placed in such a manner tactically so that you have a cross-section web of surveillance come weapon platforms in a layered manner, engaging them as further out as possible along the border, then coming inwards towards the target area. And this whole system of Sudarshan Chakra is weaving this into an integrated system, which I think we talked about it in one of our shows earlier with you, which I had the pleasure to be with, that today one of the greatest threats is to be able to have a coordinated air defense control and reporting system, which with the help of satellites passing on the data, that being seamlessly processed by our command and control system, nominating the shooter. So the sensor shooter capability has been then done, and the man in the loop basically provides an override, and the rest happens seamlessly. So these milliseconds, multi-milliseconds kind of engagements can take place.
Okay. Now let me take you to the another issue, which is, and this is about the Achilles heel of the Indian manufacturing ecosystem. Yes, I am talking about the fighter jet engines. Prime Minister Modi appealed to the youth and the government departments to produce made in India jet engine for our fighter aircrafts.
मेरे देश के युवा वैज्ञानिकों को, मेरे टैलेंटेड यूथ को, मेरे इंजीनियर्स को और प्रोफेशनल्स को और सरकार के हर विभागों को भी मेरा आह्वान है, क्या हमारा अपना मेड इन इंडिया फाइटर जेट्स के लिए जेट इंजन हमारा होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए?
Now let me take my viewers through some basic details. One, India has not been able to produce a fighter jet engine, which we deploy. One, it is a technology restricted to a few countries, which is very, very high end. It makes India dependent on foreign vendors. There were a couple of projects, for example, Kaveri engine project to power Tejas LCA back in 1986. It was flight tested also in 2004. In 2008-10, Kaveri engine failed to meet the thrust requirement for Tejas. India opted for GE F404 engine instead. This is a basic outlay I am trying to give to my viewers. So Air Commodore Singh, though the Prime Minister has announced it, though there is a great thrust on Atmanirbharta, talk of innovation, but do you think it's going to be a short road in terms of producing a jet engine?
Kartikeya, it's extremely important to understand that designing and producing a jet engine is an extremely complex engineering feat, because it involves thermodynamics, it involves thermal management, material sciences, metallurgical precision, as well as aerodynamics and the flight path which the aircraft, or flight envelope which the aircraft will be flying. Remember, the aircraft starts from 0 speed on ground, and then it goes up to Mach 2. It may go up to Mach 2, which is 2,400 to 2,500 kilometers an hour. and the jet engine starts with the air intake. Now, the air intake has to be designed for right from 0 speed up to 2,400, 500, so that the airflow doesn't become turbulent when it enters the air intake. The subsequent part of that is it goes to the compressor, where it is compressed to a very high degree pressure, and increase in temperature and pressure takes place, and the temperature comes to around 1000 degrees centigrade. From there, it goes to combustion chamber, where a fuel is sprayed and ignited explosively. With the result, both the temperature and pressure go up phenomenally, and the temperatures go up to 1700 to 1800 degrees centigrade. From here, it goes to turbine, which converts the kinetic and thermal energy into mechanical energy and rotates the shaft on which the compressor blades are running. It also converts the energy in through the generators into electricity, which powers most of the systems of the aircraft. From there, the airflow goes out into conical exhaust, and it is released at a very high velocity. With the result, Newton's third law come into business: every action has equal and opposite reaction, and the aircraft moves forward, accelerating, whether in any plane. Now, imagine the complexities where you are involving very high degrees of temperature and pressure, where you're involving blades that have to withstand. Initially, there was a technological gap when the GTRE started working on this in 1989, when $57 million were allotted, though the approval was given in 1986. And in 1995, they could run prototypes on ground. And like you rightly said, in 2004, it failed the high altitude test in Russia. And subsequently, it did pass the high altitude test sometime about 5-6 years later at altitudes of 12 kilometers. But the engine was very underpowered. Today, the same engine is going to be used with Ghatak drones, and it could not perform, with the result that 90 kilonewtons is today required either for MCA or for the LCA Mark IIs, because they are 25-ton aircraft. Now, when we are looking at this 90 kilonewton, what the government has done, and rightly so, which should have been done maybe a little bit earlier, is for going for co-development and co-production of this. We have shortlisted GE 414 engine, where 80% transfer of technology takes place. But let me tell you, I'm not very happy with the Americans. You can't tell anything about them. Today they are going to give, tomorrow they may not give, like they did to Pakistan or they did to Turkey. Now, secondly, and a very important thing is, they are only giving us 80% TOT, transfer of technology. Then we are looking at Rolls-Royce engine and the next generation Rolls-Royce engine, which can give you 120 kilonewtons. And
so, for the viewers, Commodore,
just 30 seconds more. They are willing to give us both co-development as well as full IP. Similar with Safran M88 engine, and similar with Japanese F91, which is actually giving around 130 kilonewtons. So this co-development with 100% transfer of technology and giving the IP, that is intellectual property rights, is the right way forward. And I feel that in the next 7 to 8 years, we will be able to develop if we quickly take a decision today.
I have a very different question. It's not as if, we have not done well in terms of technology. So this question is to you, sir, and the second question will be to General Sahani. The question to you is, we have a great space record, PSLV, GSLV, we have done well there. But why did we fail here? Is there a historical social context that in terms of jet innovation that we failed, but we excelled in the space sector?
There are, if you look at it, wherever the leadership has been extremely strong, whether it was space, where the leadership was very strong, or whether it was the integrated guided missile development program, which was President Kalam involved in it. And when we are looking at the leadership being very strong, we have done exceptionally well in those areas. Where the leadership has been slightly confused, and there has been slight confusion in GTRE, which refused initially to do any form of co-development. Imagine that if you're going for an electric two-wheeler scooter, you haven't yet made it, and now you want to go a fast racing car in F1 Formula racing circuit, it is going to require certain help and assistance. Even now, when we talk of LCA Mark 1A, it is actually only 59% indigenous, and there is no indigenous engine in it. So you do require certain help when the ecosystem, which starts from the university itself and goes up to the production, and the manufacturing companies, isn't it yet geared for this experience?
Okay. General Sahni, how was China successful in reverse engineering a lot of military technologies? I mean to say, reverse engineering is not a state secret. I mean to say, you require certain opportunities which may come via espionage or other things, but they were successful in doing that. Where did our story go awry? You know, I'm not saying that. Even for example, the American nuclear project, the Manhattan Project, was a German import. After they took over Germany, and when the Nazis, the entire regime dissipated. Half of the scientists were there. So you're far more well versed in these historical records where scientific opportunities and talents were sapped by neighboring countries or enemy countries. We couldn't do that. Why, sir?
Okay, I have to first, let me give you just digress onto a small incident. I was in one of these track 1.5 kind of dialogues where I was talking about science and technology with one of our Chinese counterpart. And the first thing he told me, and I told him, I said, you guys have been carrying out espionage. And if you recollect, there was that whole story on 20 critical energies, technologies, which they had sort of followed for 15 years. And then that first report that came out from PL 51642 was the declassification, which showed that they had been stealing these technology systems for a long time. So he told me, he said, General, I think you guys have got it wrong. I mean, you haven't understood what soft power is. He said, in our soft power, we sent our guys to learn there. They imbibed the knowledge and they came back and we reproduced it out here. In our case, most of the guys who went there and worked have stayed there. So I think we've had a little bit of a problem on soft power as is concerned. So he correctly told me, he says, nobody is going to give you high technology. You steal it, master the art of being able to copy it, and then you become the leader. And that's what's happened in them. If you see the last 15, 20 years, that's what they've done. They've taken critical technologies, they've then used their muscle power of money. Like any emerging niche technology, they have had a parallel process by which those professors in the US and in the advanced universities in Europe and West Asia, in Europe, were moved and allowed to come in their holidays and work here and given fantastic allowances and given the freedom to do whatever they wanted. And under them, they put their own guys to be able to pick up the knowledge. So, I mean, that aside, as far as the Chinese system, we couldn't do that. But I think where the problem really rise in our case was, I think, the focus. And let me just put it, I really feel it's the last 10 years where the sudden pride of a resurgent nationalist and a nationalism has come into the country. And to a great extent, I think we have to give credit to Prime Minister Modi to evoke that in this new generation of ours. And this whole story of COVID, which started this Atmanirbharta, I think in the last 5 years, we've done extremely well to come where we are. Unfortunately, what had happened was our research agencies and our DPSUs had become masters of their own way. They knew how to deal with the bureaucrats. Their accountability wasn't there. They had the financial support all along. So wherever, as I think the group captain correctly mentioned, wherever there was strong leadership, Abdul Kalam steered the IGMDP project. We got the cryogenic engine, the cryogenic in Russia, we co-developed and co-mastered it, then we provided, and that gave us the impetus into our missile. And this got left out. I think accountability has now come in.
I think you have very beautifully put it, General. When you said, we ended up exporting our talent, I completely agree with you. If you look at the work which many authors have done on China, they have been able to extract information from the networks which operate in American mainland. And primarily they are Chinese, and they have been able to reverse engineer all that knowledge. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you, and for sharing the perspective on the issue of the jet engines and the Iron Dome system which the Prime Minister has spoken about. Now let me jump to the fifth, close to my heart, which is about public health, rising obesity, and Prime Minister talking about it, saying reduce oil consumption.
हमारे देश के हर परिवार को चिंता करनी चाहिए। मोटापा हमारे देश के लिए बहुत बड़ा संकट बनता जा रहा है। आने वाले वर्षों में लोग, जो पंडित लोग हैं वो कहते हैं, जो जानकार लोग कहते हैं, हर तीसरे व्यक्ति में एक व्यक्ति मोटापे का शिकार होगा। हमें मोटापे से बचना है, ओबेसिटी से बचना है, और इसलिए मैंने बाकी सब करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन एक छोटा सा सुझाव दिया था कि परिवार तय करे कि जब खाने का तेल घर में आएगा 10% कम ही आएगा और 10% कम ही उपयोग करेंगे और हम ओबेसिटी के खिलाफ लड़ाई को जीतने की दिशा में हम अपना योगदान देंगे.
Let me straight away go to Dr. Shikha Sharma, founder One Health and Better Nutritious. Madam, my straight question, why has oil consumption jumped in this country? What Prime Minister has been saying is like a push for a healthy India. But why has oil consumption jumped so much, madam?
See, the fundamental reason why oil consumption has jumped is because of rising income, where people can afford oil. There was a time when people could not afford oil and therefore the oil consumption was very little. But today, because of rising consumption, people are able to afford oil and they are using it very liberally. That is one of the biggest reasons oil consumption has gone up.
One reason you say because people can afford it. But are you saying that the people are consuming more oil in their vegetables, more oil in the meat? I mean to say oil as a medium of cooking has existed for thousands of years.
Yes. See, oil was always sparingly used because it was an expensive commodity, number one. Number two, because it was expensive because the general income was very low. Now with rising incomes, people have what they call as discretionary income. Now that discretionary income is being used to have more oily food, use oil liberally in their food, and also consume a lot of what we say is convenience food, what in layman language is called junk food, fast food. So this rising income has gone towards consuming more oil and more convenience foods.
So, madam, is it because of the fact that people are consuming more oil because they are, cooking food in their kitchens with larger amount of oil, or are they consuming it through processed food, chips, other things which a lot of people say use industrial oil, seed oil, which is not good oil, and it's all becoming part of your diet because of this habit of snacking, high calorie, dense food?
Absolutely, both. Actually, both. And I would say that the oil consumption at home has gone up, but the bad oil consumption, which is called the chemical oil consumption.
What is a chemical oil, madam? I think you should tell people. What is chemical oil?
Yes. So what happens, suppose if you look at kachi ghani or cold pressed oils, the traditional way where seeds were crushed and oil was extracted. Now that oil is healthy oil because it has essential fatty acids, which is important for our brain, for our nervous system, for our hormones. The chemical oil is refined oil. In the refining process, a lot of chemicals are used to extract the oil. It is not just crushed oil, crushed seeds, but chemicals are used to take out the oil from the seeds. Now these chemicals stay in the oil. They don't completely come out. And because they stay in the oil, ultimately that oil and that chemical is going inside the body and disrupting our entire hormonal system, causing inflammation, causing visceral fat. So all today what you see that, a lot of people would say that Indians have bad genes. And I disagree. Indians do not have bad genes. Indians have fantastic genes. It is the chemicals in the oil, chemicals in the fast food, which is actually disrupting our hormonal system, disrupting our gut biome, disrupting our entire digestive processes and giving us diseases like diabetes, like cancer, like hormonal imbalance.
Like for example, the Lancet study that has come that people, 1 in 4 Indian does not know that they have diabetes. 4 in 10 diabetics in India are unaware of their condition. So, we can blame our lifestyle, we can blame, stressful job conditions, but it is also because of the fact that the sort of food which people are eating, isn't that, madam?
Absolutely. Like if you see, look at any grocery store, it is full of packaged food. And these are packaged foods which are all containing chemicals. Now all these chemicals, where are they going? They're going into our liver, into our kidney, into our brains. So it is disrupting our entire digestive system. So when they say that so many Indians are having diabetes, it is because chemicals in the system are coming and causing diabetes. Otherwise, a lot of Indians, if you see a lot of slim Indians are having diabetes. Why? Because of these chemicals. Because if you see, a chemical can cause anything from diabetes to cancer, to mutation, to anything. So the problem is chemical. This is a time which has come where we have to stop talking about calories and start talking about chemicals. So not low calorie, but low chemical.
But has the time come also, madam, that people should be told about type of oil to be used? Because when you go to a supermarket, you find 50,000 oils. And every on every oil box, bottle, it's written it's the best oil for you. And then this oil will support your heart.
Absolutely. I think it's a time to even tell Indians that what is the right oil. So firstly, I would divide it into three things. When you look at oil, how it is processed is important, what is the origin is important, and how much you're consuming is important. So let's begin with the easiest, which is how much you should consume. So you should not consume more than 2 teaspoons per person per day. So 2 teaspoons of oil per person per day is your maximum limit you should consume. Now, what are the kind of oils you should consume? You should consume different kind of oils like sesame seed oil, which is til oil, moongfali, peanut oil, then you should have sarso oil, which is kachi. But all of them should be, the third point is kachi ghani, which is cold pressed oils, not refined oils. Now, in the market, what you're talking about, refined oils, it's full of palm oil, which is the main constituent.
So you are saying even mustard can be, you might find mustard oil but may not be cold pressed.
Yes. So you have to, so like I said, processing should be right, the seed oil should be right, and the quantity should be right. So in processing, leave the refined, pick up the cold pressed oils.
So at the end of it, you are saying less. What about butter and ghee?
Yes, good point. Now, if you really see a lot of butters, they don't really have original butter. A lot of it is plant or plant-based, ingredients which are added to cut down the cost. Like if you remember that many years back, there used to be something called a plant-based ghee. What was that plant-based ghee? Or it was basically hydrogen passed through oils, and then that hydrogen would convert a liquid into a solid looking like a ghee. They would put flavors and the yellow color. So similarly, what I'm seeing, please use white butter at home. Make fresh butter, use that.
Okay.
You will use this. And in ghee also, if you're using organic, if you're using natural ghee, then it is purer ghee. Otherwise, a lot of, you know how much adulteration happens in ghee, because ghee is expensive.
So it's like a double whammy, ma'am. You are saying that not only you should go back to the traditional oils, but the process of making the oil should also be checked. I don't know how many people have access to that sort of a thing when everything is being produced at industrial level. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining me. And I think when the Prime Minister talks about health, it should be taken seriously, because health is wealth. And this is all I have in this special Independence Day edition of On Point. So thank you for watching. Good night.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर डायना प्रीमियम ब्यूटी सोप, पहली झलक करे खूबसूरत।
Score condoms?
It's over there.
क्या ये different sizes में आता है?
Actually, sir,